Hi, everybody. We are live. This is my office. This is Wendy Weber of the Wendy Show. And I didn't want to wait, but my guest, who I'm interviewing today, Liz Galpin, disappeared. Evidently, this platform is having some connectivity issues, but you can see me. So I'm just going to start the show, and hopefully she will come in. Because I can't interview her without her. Well, we can still do some talking and some singing, of course. So let's start off the show with a little bit of kazoo. Welcome everybody to the Wendy Show. That'll come into play at the end because I have my little song, sort of like Carol Burnett does. So this is the Wendy Show, and this week hopefully, because she was just here and now everybody's gone, I am live streaming this to YouTube. So we'll have the YouTube later, and hopefully Liz will be back. I hear some weird noises, so maybe somebody's coming back. Here's Liz. Woo-hoo!
I'm back.
All right.
I had to close it out.
All right. So I've already started the show. This is the Wendy Show, and there's Liz Galpin, and Liz is the president of the board of directors for the North Valley Symphony Orchestra, which I love because most of their performances are a mile, actually 1.2 miles from my house at my daughter's old high school. I love it. But it's a beautiful auditorium. It's got great acoustics. Layla was in 2 plays there, believe it or not, way back when. But now we have the luxury of having this wonderful orchestra there. So let's see what we can find out about Liz. But first, I want to sing a little song that I started work on a long time ago. And I'm just going to sing. I've got a lot of work to do on it, but it's called Classical Gal. It's my favorite genre of music. It's classical. I don't sing a lot of classical, but actually I'm going to take some classical and steal some of the music because it's public domain and nobody can sue me for using that. And they have some of the great melodies in the world. You all think it's the songs of the country and everything songs. No, it's all the classical, which covers so many different styles. It's delightful. So some songs, they are sung with a twang, and some songs not sure the folks even sang. Some songs, they are shouted, and I even doubted screeches are songs. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm working on in between, but it ends. Thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God. I'm a classical gal. So I'm working on that. Thank you, Liz. All right. I used to play classical music because I took piano lessons for 9 years. So we're going to talk to Liz. And we're going to start out, maybe she'll tell us a skeleton or two from her closet. But I want to start out, where'd you come from? Where were you born? How long you been here? And how'd you get here?
Okay. I was actually born in Illinois at Great Lakes Naval Base.
Whoa.
When my dad was serving in the Navy after medical school. I lived there until I was about 6 months old and moved to Kentucky, where my dad did his residency at University of Kentucky in Lexington. So I was there until I was about 3.5, and then I moved to Wisconsin, grew up in the Milwaukee area, and that's really where I consider myself being from. We spent a year living in Australia when I was 7. I went to college at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota. Sorry?
Where in Australia were you?
Yep, so college in... Oh, where in Australia was I? I was in a town called Newcastle, which is about 90 miles north of Sydney.
Okay.
So right on the coast of Australia. And then college in Northfield, Minnesota at St. Olaf College, which is a fantastic music program, education major there. Spent a year teaching orchestra in Devils Lake, North Dakota. So I've kind of come from all over the place. Moved back to Wisconsin and lived there for a while. and then moved out to Phoenix in 2000. So I've been here 19 years now. So probably
Wow.
longer here than I've lived just about anywhere else.
Okay. Well, me too. But I did go to school in Wisconsin, but I'm from Chicago.
Yay.
I don't have as interesting a background as you do. That I had no idea. See, you don't find out this stuff if you don't ask questions.
That's right.
What drew you to music, Liz?
What drew me to music? You know, I grew up in a family that always had music on in the house. And it was almost always classical music, sometimes some folk or some Broadway, but 99% of the time it was classical music. And, you know, you have kids who run around and they maybe play something like Cowboys and Indians or something like that. No, we put on Beethoven's Wellington's Victory and we acted out the battle between Wellington and Napoleon with Beethoven in the background. I mean, that's just kind of the house that we grew up in. My parents both played instruments in high school, but didn't really follow it through after high school. My dad played trumpet. My mom played flute. My older sister plays cello, just like I do. And she was actually 4 years ahead of me in school. So I always got to kind of see what she was doing. All three of us girls, I've got two sisters, and all three of us played piano. I started off on violin. After a year, decided to switch over to cello, and boy, am I glad I did. And then my younger sister played oboe, so we just always had music going on in the house.
Now, what was it about the cello? I played it in high school, not nearly as well as well, never have been great at that. But what drew to the cello from the violin?
I just love the rich tones that you can get in the cello. Your upper strings, you can have some really nice bright tones, but you get down into the and it just is such a wonderful rich tone. And the range on the cello is huge, so you can play. If people know about reading music, you know, the violins are always playing in treble clef. You know, the cello actually reads regularly three clefs: bass clef, tenor clef, and treble clef, because the range of the instrument is such that you can span that kind of range. So I just love the rich tones. I love the ergonomics of it from a physical standpoint. When you play violin, you're kind of twisted in this crazy, funny way. Cello, you're just sitting in a really good posture, and I love that. And it's physically, you know, it's not easy to play, but it's logical. It makes sense physically how you actually play the instrument.
So it's your how you're sitting and your posture.
Yep, how you're sitting.
Yeah.
You know, you're not doing any kind of weird twisting and, you know, just unnatural movements. Everything's very natural movement in cello.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have less need for the chiropractor, correct?
Exactly.
So when you first got to Phoenix, what were you doing?
I actually worked for American Express for 22 years.
Ooh.
So I was working for them in Wisconsin and then transferred out to Phoenix with the same company. So I worked for them. Most people know American Express as the credit card company. That's not the side of the company I worked for. I worked for the Travel and Lifestyle Services. So travel agencies, foreign currency exchange, and that sort of thing. So when I moved out to Phoenix, I continued working for American Express and then just continued through various roles with the company, all related to the travel and the financial services side of travel. So things like doing foreign currency exchange. I ended up moving into compliance roles and training on the financial services and compliance parts of the roles in the travel specific business. So it was 22 years with them. So you cover a lot of ground in 22 years. But I love doing the foreign currency exchange because currency notes tell you so much about the country, just like the music from a country tells you about the country and what's important to them. Looking at their currency notes is very similar. And I've got the travel book. You know, I just love learning about other cultures and everything. So looking at the currency and seeing what did that country decide to put on its currency notes? What was important to them? What historical events, what people did they choose to highlight on their currency? It's really kind of fun.
That I never thought of it from that point of view. I know that geography covers a lot about culture.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just another way to do that. But I think stamp collecting is the same thing, isn't it?
It is. It's the same thing. The stamps, just like the currency, the countries put on the stamps what's important to them. So.
Yeah. So you don't work for them anymore?
No, I was laid off a few years ago and just decided not to continue in the workforce because I'm keeping really, really busy with volunteer work with North Valley Symphony Orchestra, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I'm a regular blood donor as well, so it's keeping me really busy, and my husband is keeping the roof over our house. So,
well, I thank him because I see you all the time. We show up at many of the same events. How did you find out about the North Valley Symphony, and was there an advertisement? Because it's a few years old. What, about 5 years old, 6?
Yeah, we just finished our 7th concert season. So I just finished my 4th year with the orchestra. And I found out about it actually through a friend of mine who I used to work with at American Express. And she used to actually support the business that I was in at American Express. So I knew her when I was still living in Wisconsin. She's here in Phoenix. So I've known her for years and years and years. And she actually is our flute and piccolo player in the orchestra. Okay, so she had joined the year before I joined them, and she said, Liz, they're having auditions. They need some cellos. You ought to try out. So that's how I found out about it. And I tell you what, I'm so happy I did, because it's such a great organization. And it had been about 20 years since I had music regularly in my life. I'd pull my cello out and I'd play for myself from time to time. I'd go out and play at nursing homes occasionally, but it wasn't a regular part of my life for over 20 years. And I just did not realize how much I missed it until I got that back. And I am just loving it. I now play not just with North Valley Symphony Orchestra. I play with the Verde Valley Sinfonietta in Sedona. I play in 2 or 3 different quartets. I play at a couple different churches in their little orchestras. So I'm just out and doing so much musically and loving every minute of it.
Yeah, I get great joy from music too. It's wonderful. And if I go back to any instrument, it'll be the cello, but I don't have one. I'd have to get one, but I don't have time. I'm busy writing songs and doing presentations and things like that. But it's
something you need to be able to devote the time to. You have to be able to practice even just a little bit every day.
Yeah.
You don't need to practice 7 hours every day, but you do need to practice a little bit just to keep your fingers loose, keep your bow hands loose, your wrists, all those things. You got to keep them going if you just practice a little bit every day. I usually get in, most days I try to get an hour and a half or 2 hours of practice in, but it just depends on what I'm working on too. Like this time of year, there's not a lot going on. So I pull out old solo books or quartet music that I haven't played before, just kind of doodle around and have some fun. So it's great.
It's like me noodling on the piano, on the keyboard, or pulling around with my ukulele. But actually, I'm going to go, I have to arrange it, but I want to take some ukulele lessons. So I'm totally self-taught since 1963, so it's been a long time. But I don't know the nuances. I never, the books are too difficult to read. They don't make sense to me. I have to be sure. So some of it, I'll be a little bit more expert on the playing when I perform, because I don't think anybody else cares, but I care. So when you do a great job, and when you have you gone back to take any lessons at all to brush up, or have you not needed that?
On cello, I have not done it. I just didn't have time. When I joined NVSO, I was still working at American Express, and I was also on a 6-month jury duty. So at the time I joined, it's just like, I don't have time to, add in rehearsal and lessons and everything. And I just haven't gone back to it. It's something I keep thinking about. I also keep thinking about starting to teach again, taking on private students on cello, but have to kind of work out the logistics on that before I do anything further with that. But
right, because that there's time involved with that. Absolutely. What kind of a case was the jury duty?
it was actually state grand jury. So the grand jury is hearing all sorts of different things because you're determining if there's probable cause to indict someone.
Right.
So it's before trial. It wasn't a trial jury. It was state grand jury. So we heard everything, and we had 6 or 7 cases most days that we just had. They had to present if they had reasonable evidence that something happened, that a crime was committed, and that this person was involved in it. So totally different beast than trial. Sorry?
Yeah. How did you get chosen for that?
It was just a random selection pool. And then it was a state grand jury. So they had a pool of 95 jurors that they started with, I think, from all over the state. They have to pull from every county when they do the jury selection process. So they had jurors from all over the state who came down for the selection process. And then they had a series of different phases of eliminating jurors for various reasons. And, the questions would be fairly broad, and then they would narrow them down. It, got to the point that they needed, of those 95 jurors, they needed, I think, 24. We had 16 people who were appointed to the grand jury and 8 who were appointed as alternates. So I think they needed 24, knowing that over a 6-month jury process, you're probably going to lose a few jurors in there for one thing or another. So it was an interesting process. The first day, all 24 people had to be there. And then after that, it was pretty much just the standard 16, but they understand you might miss a day or two. As long as we had a quorum, we could go ahead and hold the jury service on that day. So it was really interesting process.
Interesting. I'm glad I didn't have to do any of that. I've never been on a jury. I've been in the pool, and that I never had to actually serve. So we're going to take a quick break right now because we have to do a public service announcement. We're following up on Lucky, and you know that Lucky's been in the doghouse. I'm sorry, the bird cage. So Lucky, if I can hold this up, Lucky, can you see? Because I'm only little here. If I click on me, will I get in?
Move it up a little higher. There you go.
Oh, there we go. So Lucky was doing an invasion of privacy. So what I had to do with him, he's back in detention. So that's all the stuff he's working on in his cage. He's back in detention. So I just want to let everybody know an update on Lucky Destructo Conure. I give him lots of stuff to destroy in his cage. So just that's an update. I know people wanted to know. All right, so back to our regularly scheduled program. All right, so what does a typical day for you look like?
A typical day for me. Get up and have breakfast with my husband. Always like to have breakfast together if we can. I usually will do administrative work for the orchestra in the morning. So that could be everything from working with donors to setting up the ticket campaigns in our online tool, doing registration work, doing grant applications, all sorts of different things like that. Again, I try to have lunch with my husband if possible. He works from home, so it's great. Of course, I get to a lot of the networking events, so it just depends on which day of the week I may be at a networking event for part of the day. Depending on what's going on, I may be out doing community service events. Our orchestra likes to play in nursing home facilities, care facilities. We've got a partnership with Gompers this year that's been great. So we go out there and we play for them. So there's all sorts of things that we're doing. So it just depends, what day of the week. If we're out there doing something, it's likely I'm involved in it. And then usually I try to get some practice time in the afternoon. always try to make time for an afternoon nap if possible, because I think naps are very good.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So practicing usually, you know, if I can get an hour to hour and a half or 2 hours in a day, I like to do that if possible. This time of year, there's got to be a daily swim in there because we can use the pool. So I also enjoy hiking and that sort of thing, and then cooking, so getting dinner ready and all of that. Once we start the season up again, you know, it'll be rehearsals every Monday night. So that usually involves me being there early because we have 3 youth orchestras as well as our adult orchestra. So I like to be in there and kind of be able to talk to parents, talk to the directors if necessary for some of those rehearsals. So, you know, those activities all keep you pretty busy. I also mentor a girl with Big Brothers Big Sisters. And I also am a regular platelet donor. So I go in every 2 or 3 weeks to donate platelets. So that's, you know, 3.5 hours to do that every 2 or 3 weeks. So
I had a question that just kind of escaped me. But it was about the orchestra. And you got an upcoming season that starting out, was it a Nordic?
Yes, a Scandinavian tour.
Yes. Tell us about the season next year.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting season. So October concert is a Scandinavian tour. So we have music by a Swedish composer, a Danish composer, a Finnish composer, and a Norwegian composer.
Now, which one is Grieg? Grieg is what? What is his?
Grieg, he's Norwegian, and we are doing both Peer Gynt suites. So Peer Gynt suite number 1 and number 2.
Woo-hoo.
So I'm very excited about that.
I love that.
For people who don't know Peer Gynt, you do know Peer Gynt. You just don't know you know it. Morning Mood is from that, in the Hall of the Mountain King, which everyone will know, especially this is our October concert. So you're going to hear that all the time because it's very Halloween-y. So we're playing both Peer Gynt suites for the Grieg. The youth orchestra is playing a couple of Swedish folk songs by a Swedish composer. The Finnish composer is Sibelius. That's not a surprise. He's probably the most well-known Finnish composer. But we are not playing Finlandia. We are playing Karelia Suite, which is good.
Okay.
And then the, who am I missing? Danish composer is Carl Nielsen. And interestingly, the piece we're playing is called the Helios Overture. Helios being sun.
I've heard the name and I've heard the music, but right now I can't connect the two.
Yeah, I have never heard the Helios. I had never heard the Helios Overture until we started talking about playing it. It's a really cool piece. So the story is that Nielsen went to Greece, I think, and he was so inspired. Remember, you're coming from Denmark, which they may have sunlight late in the evenings during the summer, but it's a different quality of sunlight than you get in the Mediterranean. So he goes down to the Mediterranean, and he's so inspired by the path of the sun going over across the sky and the arch of a day of the sunlight that he wrote this piece called the Helios Overture. So it starts off very slow and kind of what you would picture a sunrise, and just, you know, you can feel the warmth building. And then as the sun gets higher in the sky, the energy of the music picks up, and then it starts slowing down towards the end of the day. So it's really a really cool musical depiction of a day of the sun crossing the sky in the Mediterranean area. So that's kind of cool. Our December concert is going to be a Christmas Pops concert, which is always a favorite with the audience.
Gets pulled out.
Yeah, lots of Christmas music. Santa's always going to be there, so it's always fun. This year we actually are going to be joined. There's a orchestral setting of the poem "The Night Before Christmas" that has narration of the actual text of the poem. So we're being joined by a local theater troupe, Brevity Theater troupe, to actually do the narration on that piece. So that's going to be kind of fun. And then our March concert, March 2020, is really going to be fun. It's Women in Music.
Oh,
So it's the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. It just this past week or so, it actually was the day it was passed, and then it got ratified in 2020. So we're playing a concert in March of music by women composers, which you don't hear very often.
No.
So we're actually playing Joan Tower. She's a contemporary composer. I actually got to meet her last week when I was in Nashville for the League of American Orchestras conference. She's 80 years old. She's been writing music for most of her life. And she wrote a piece that was in a kind of a takeoff on the Aaron Copland piece, A Fanfare for the Common Man. Okay. So she wrote Fanfare for the Uncommon Woman. And so she's done a few variations on it depending on the instrumentation. So we're playing the Fanfare for the Uncommon Woman number 6. And then we're also playing 2 pieces that are kind of late romantic, late 1800s, maybe early 1900s, women composers, which, you know, they wrote some fantastic music. Yeah. We're playing Amy Beach's Gaelic Symphony. She was an American composer. And then we're playing a piece by Chaminade, who is a French composer, I believe. She's most famous for a flute sonata that she wrote, but we're actually playing the Calero Suite. So these are women who were alive and writing music at the time that the women's suffrage movement was going on.
Oh,
so
cool. Yeah.
It's going to be a really great concert. Then May, I'm super excited about May as well. Our May concert is called Across America. So we're doing a concert that is based on geographical locations across America. So we're playing a piece by Michael Dougherty called Route 66. We're playing Faraday Groffé, who wrote the Grand Canyon Suite, but we're not playing the Grand Canyon Suite. He also wrote a Mississippi Suite. Oh. So we're playing the Mississippi Suite. The youth are playing the Appalachia Waltz by Mark O'Connor. So we've got the Appalachians of Mississippi, Route 66, which crosses the country. We're playing a piece, which I'm super excited. I had the chance to play it a couple of years ago in Sedona with the Verde Valley Sinfonietta. There's a composer named Jared Impich-Chahatate. I probably mutilated that. He's a citizen of the Chickasaw Nation in Oklahoma, and he writes classical music that is inspired with American Indian traditions and music, and it's just really great music.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's the piece we're playing on that concert is Indian Spirit at Mesa Falls, and it actually is telling the story, a Shoshone Indian story about these twin falls up in Idaho, Mesa Falls, and you know the love story of these 2 young lovers, and one of them tried to impress the girl, and he dove into the pool and he drowned, and she dove in to rescue him, and she drowned. And
sounds like the song Running Bear. A few years ago, I sang that when I was a Girl Scout.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great piece of music. You know, the spirit, the mist coming up out of the waterfalls is the spirit of this woman who's coming up to protect other people visiting the falls. Yeah, so that's all depicted in the music, and when you know the story, you hear it in the music. It's really cool, and we're playing on that concert as well. One of everyone's favorites, which is Dvorak's New World Symphony.
Well, that is my favorite one. One of my goals is to take all the different themes from that and write a song for each one of them. That's down the line, but of all the symphonies, that's the one that I think has the best prospects for what I can do. Going Home is from that one. But I think he took it from folk songs, didn't he? He took a lot of it
from folk song. He got folk song tradition that he picked up on, and also some of the Native American songs that he was hearing, or just the tonalities kind of play into it a little bit as well.
Well, I can't wait for our wonderful conductor to point those things out so that we know what to look for, which, by the way, everybody, our conductor, Kevin Kozak, is that how you pronounce it, right?
Yep, Kozak.
He gives a lesson on the piece. There's also notes on the pieces, but he gives a lesson on that so we know what to look for. It makes it so much more fun, and we learn so much. We're just about out of time. I can't wait for next year. You know, I was thinking of in the Hall of the Mountain King, there was a musical done, it was on television musical years and years ago on the Pied Piper of Hamelin starring the late Van Johnson, and I forgot who else was in it. But they had parodies. They sang the songs. The music was to the different themes in the Hall of the Mountain King, and they did a wonderful job with that, which is also a specialty of mine, doing parodies. So this was absolutely great. I want to give a little commercial for, if you look on the right, those of you who are on right now on the crowdpublish.tv, the offer that I have is a Way to Wellness session with me, yours truly, Wendy, as a get to know you discovery of something in your life that you want to be feeling better about. Does it require more work on you? Let's have a discussion on what I can do. And a portion of the proceeds is $25. You just do it right online here. A portion of the proceeds will go to Arizona Lions Camp Tadia. It's a camp for children and adults with disabilities. It's free for them. I want to keep it free, and wouldn't you like to help? And in the end, I do want to thank my dear friend Liz Gelpin for teaching me about her, because I didn't know most of this stuff. That is absolutely fun for me. Now, I'm going to sing my closing song, and I take my some lessons from my idol, Carol Burnett. I'm watching some of the old shows. There, you want to feel better, just laugh at those things. And the tune for this is based on one of the songs from my CD, The Winds of Change, which is really about bringing my mother to Phoenix from Chicago. This has been a ball right from the start. Fun to use kazoo. Oh, sorry, I'm glad that you are here, all to take part. Fun to use kazoo and not a thought, drum and fife. Wish a joyous melody in your heart and harmony in your life. You don't have to be perfect to do this, guys. I'm certainly not, as you can see. Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye until next week. We're going to have another person from the Phoenix Metro Chamber of Commerce, Elsie. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I am looking for shutting it off.